Hey everyone, it's Colin from GIY Guy. Thanks for checking out today's video. We're talking about why your zucchini are going from this very healthy looking baby zucchini to, in the worst case, something like this, where it just turns yellow, rots, and is ready to fall off the vine. Or maybe you're seeing something in between, like this, where it starts to yellow, get bug eaten, and you'll notice that it starts to get squishy, like it's starting to rot on the inside. So early on, my zucchini plant was doing great. It had plenty of flowers, plenty of baby zucchini. I thought, I'm gonna need one plant for the summer and that's it. But very quickly I realized that gardening is a different story, and as you saw, they started rotting and falling off the vine, and here we go again. I gotta figure out what's wrong with my plants. So before we get too far, here's the proof that what I'm gonna share actually works. Early on, these were my zucchinis. All of them were little babies with a flower on them. And then a week or two later, all of them, and I do mean all of them, would start to look like this, where they would be rotten and squishy and eventually just completely rot and fall off the vine. And then 2 weeks later, after some experimentation, boom, here we go. There is a zucchini that is honestly going to be ready to harvest this week. So very excited about that. If you're experiencing the same thing I did, I've got two really good explanations for you. We're going to divide them into two camps. You've got camp number one that says it's a calcium deficiency causing blossom end rot. Seems to make sense considering the ends of your zucchini are rotting and they're falling off the vine. But then camp number two has a much easier explanation, or at least comes with a much easier solution, and that is that your zucchini are simply not being pollinated. It's a pollination issue. So today we're going to dive into both of these. So the calcium deficiency people are going to say you need to add calcium supplements, add some powdered form of calcium, add crushed eggshells, all that stuff. But I'm going to disagree. I think that calcium is very prevalent in your soil, especially if you've got some clay in your soil. And the problem is that your plants are just not able to either take up that calcium from the soil or effectively transport it through the rest of the plant. So to really understand a calcium deficiency, we have to understand how calcium is transported and used by the plant. So we've got Fred here. He's a fresh pull from the garden, a little baby zucchini plant complete with roots, stem, and leaves, every part of a balanced garden plant. So we're going to start really simple. Calcium is a mineral, and minerals are first absorbed by the plant roots and then transported to the rest of the plant, specifically the leaves, by a process called transpiration. Now, transpiration is a fancy word that means water vapor evaporating off the leaves. This plant sweating process, transpiration, is critical for growth of the plant, nutrient transport, mineral transport, and cooling of the plant. But why though? Why do we need to know about transpiration? Why is it so important? Well, glad you asked. Transpiration works hand in hand with what's called the xylem vascular system. Or vascular tissue. Basically, if you throw back to 8th grade biology, you learned about xylem and phloem in plants. Xylem is the vascular tissue responsible for carrying and transporting water and minerals through the rest of the plant. It's a single direction system. It only flows from roots to leaves, not leaves to roots. If all of a sudden it just stops and water flow stops when it reaches the leaves, now your transport of minerals and water is halted. And so what has to happen when the water reaches the leaves is transpiration. That's when the water vapor is released into the air and requires the roots to uptake more water and minerals and keeps that loop flowing. That is what is carrying calcium from your soil into the rest of your plant. Now to the practical stuff. What can you do to improve transpiration rates of your plants, improve the absorption in your roots? So number one, you can aerate the soil around your plant or just use well-draining soil in your garden beds. I prefer raised beds because it drains really well and I can choose whatever soil or soil mix that I put in those beds. Remember that unhealthy roots or suffocated roots are just not going to absorb well, and it's just overall going to lead to an unhealthy plant. So the second thing you can do is improve the airflow and air circulation around your plants, specifically by pruning your plants. I know that I've only got one zucchini, so it's not a huge deal, but if you've got multiple zucchini, it can kind of crowd that airspace and reduce the air circulation, which reduces the transpiration rates. And remember that the higher the transpiration rate, the more water that's actually flowing through your plant and carrying those essential minerals like calcium. So just a growing tip, I personally grow my zucchini on a stake. I trellis them on a stake. I haven't pruned them in a little bit, but basically we're gonna prune off anything that's down in the bottom half of the plant. Like, even though it's a big healthy leaf that looks good, it's actually best to keep them away from the ground. So here's a better look here. You can see that the stem is really right here. And I've just been pruning most of those bottom leaves as it grows and tying the main part of the stem to the stake that I've got. And you can see as I prune, it forces this new growth up here, and then also forces new baby zucchini growth. So instead of being kind of a pile mess, you actually get a really clean trellising up this stake, which is going to improve the airflow of your plant. So hand in hand with that, the last thing is adequate watering. You don't want to overwater or underwater. That's one of the biggest stresses on plants, especially zucchini. They need lots of water, but they also hate being overwatered. As I learned back in Greensboro, one of the reasons I only got male flowers, I think, was because the soil was too wet and the plant was stressed out. So finally, if you get to the end of those options and they're not really working for you, obviously they're not going to work overnight, but maybe over the course of the summer, if they're not working for you, maybe it's time to add some kind of calcium supplement. Maybe you are calcium deficient in your soil, and you can go ahead and just add something like lime, which is calcium carbonate. So just a really easily absorbed form of the calcium mineral for your plants to take up through the roots. Well, if you made it this far in the video, I appreciate you. Hit that like and subscribe button. That was camp number 1, talking about a calcium deficiency. We're moving to camp number 2, which more easily and simply says it's a pollination issue. Now, to be honest, this sounds a little too good to be true. Kind of like on YouTube when I was working on my car windows, the guy said, just hit the window motor a few times with a hammer and it'll work again. It'll go back up and down. And sure enough, I tried it and it worked. So whatever it is, Occam's razor, I think, the simplest solution is often the best one. So looking at your zucchini plant, you'll notice there's 2 types of flowers. You've got male and female flowers. This is what a male flower looks like. It's not open right now, it's later in the morning, but basically it looks like a flower on the end of a stem, and you'll see there's no baby zucchini on that stem. Now we move over here to a female flower. And this is a great example because it's open too, but this is a baby zucchini. And this is actually called the ovary of the flower. And you'll see that inside, this is where the pollen has to land in order for that ovary or baby zucchini to be fertilized. So now let's talk about why your flowers might not be getting pollinated. Number 1 and most important, I think it's just an odds game. At the end of the day, you have to have enough flowers to improve the odds of pollination. Right now, I have 1 zucchini plant, which I think is my problem. At any given time, I've got 2 male flowers and 2 female flowers. Now think about it. The odds of a pollinator landing on one of my 2 male flowers and that same pollinator landing on one of my 2 female flowers, in that order, male to female, is very low. Especially since I only have 1 plant. Now if I had 10 plants, now all of a sudden I've got 10 times the number of flowers. The chance that any of them pollinate each other is much higher. Another simple reason could just be the weather. Maybe it's too cold, windy, or rainy for pollinators to do their job effectively. Maybe your plants are too far apart. Like I said, you want to group your plants together because that's going to improve the odds. Finally, another big reason pollination might not be happening is because you've only got male flowers. It's just a bunch of dude flowers and there's no females to be pollinated. So this typically means that your plant is stressed, and that's a topic for a whole nother video, but you just got to figure out what's stressing your plants. The last thing I want to do is show you how to hand pollinate a zucchini flower. And if you remember back to the first part of this video, that zucchini I showed you, the big one that's actually successful, that was hand pollinated. So it does work, and the best part is it only takes a week to see if that was actually the problem or not. So hand pollinating is really simple, quick, and easy. All you need is a Q-tip. And what you're going to do is you're going to find a male flower, which is shown by not having a little baby zucchini on it. It's just a flower on the end of a stem. You're going to go in here, might have to open it up if it's later in the morning, but you're just going to rub the Q-tip around on that pollen. And then we're going to transfer it to the female flower. So again, you can identify a female flower because it has this baby zucchini ovary on it. And what you're going to do, you're going to take the pollinated Q-tip, or a Q-tip with pollen on it, and you're just going to rub it around on the pistil of this flower. And that's just going to transfer pollen to that. And then before you know it, you're going to have a full-grown zucchini if you give it about a week or 2, because now pollination has occurred. It'll take a couple days. This flower will start to fall off, and then this zucchini will eventually turn into a larger zucchini like I showed you at the beginning. Well, there you go. That's all I've got for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit that like and subscribe button. Definitely try the hand pollination solution first before you dive into the whole calcium deficiency thing. But try hand pollination and then just work through some of those other options I gave you. But with that, keep growing yourself, and I'll catch you in the next one.